What are 2 steps that you can take as a real estate investor to ensure that you maintain control over your real estate investments? I can promise you this is important because as soon as you lose control of your investments can start running you, and they don't usually run you in the right direction. So you always want to stay on top of your investment properties to ensure that you're actually going to profit from them. So how do you do that? I'm going to give you 2 very basic things that you can do to make sure that you maintain control over your investments. And then at the end, I'm going to give you kind of a special secret helpful thing to get you started, kind of like a first step to controlling your investment. All right, first and most importantly, if you're interested in maintaining control over your investments and you realize and you acknowledge how important it is, hit the like button. That's just my excuse to have you hit the like button. So do that. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Hit that big red button down there. I put out new videos every single week. All right, let's get to it. Step number 1, get educated. Education is going to change the name of the game. Think about it like this. The more resources and tools that you have in your tool belt, metaphorically, the more stops you can pull to make sure that things are going how you want them to go. If you don't know how to solve a certain problem or you don't know what options are available to you, you're going to be a lot more limited in how you solve challenges or what you do to control your investment and make sure that it's profiting. So as was it NBC says, the more you know, but it's true. The more you know, the more you have in your tool belt, the bigger your arsenal to pull from. Now, education. I said I'd give a couple of examples. So what are some things that you could specifically make sure that you're getting educated on to help build that tool belt? Number 1, risk. And right behind that, risk mitigation. So let's say you're going forward on some investment strategy. Let's say you're flipping a property. If you can get educated on what the very specific risk points are in a flipping experience, that's step 1. Right behind that, learn via education how to mitigate those risks. So what are the risks? Can't do much with them if you don't know what they are. What are the risks? How can you help mitigate them? How can you help avoid them happening in the first place? And how can you overcome them if any of them happen? Having all of that knowledge, do you see how that would be starkly different than going into a flip, having no idea what could go wrong, and if something goes wrong, what to do about it? If you are in that latter category where you have no idea what could go wrong or what you could do about it, you're going to be in the submissive position. How can you control your investment if you don't know those things? So risk and risk mitigation and what to do about it is huge for maintaining control over your investment. A second piece of education you can focus on getting, and I realize this one maybe not be quite as fun, mindset. So let's say that you have a fear of failure, and that fear of failure either holds you back from an investment, or if something happens that you're perceiving as a failure, and because you're so scared of failure, it completely knocks you out of the game. Like, that's kind of drastic. You don't want that to happen. Educate yourself on what is failure? What does failure mean? If you educate yourself on it, you listen to some of the biggest investors in the world, you'll find out they have all failed to the tune of millions of dollars. If you know that, if a failure happens, you can feel better about it and not lose yourself to the emotions of it. So learning the mindset component, which covers a lot more things than just fear of failure, but that's a pretty common one as an investor. Learn the mindset thing so that when, not if, challenges arise, you're like, I got this. I'm staying in control. Keep your confidence, keep your control. Because if any of the mindset components beat you out, for example, like if they win out over you, you're no longer in control. You're having to roll over and submit to whatever it is your mind is telling you is the truth, and it may not be accurate. So that's step 1, get educated and never stop educating yourself. There's always more education to get. And I get it. It's not the first thing you want to start with as an investor. Like, you want to get a property, but get educated. I promise you the time you take to get that education will make just boatloads of difference later. Step 2 in ensuring that you control your investment. What is it? Well, this one's a little bit more fun, but it's also very challenging for some people. Step 2 is having a willingness to put the smack down. What? What does that even mean? If something goes wrong, you have to be willing to do something about it. Whether that is something about the property itself, like a technical logistical thing, or if it's people. Let's say, here's a common example, and I've had this happen to me. If you work with a property manager on your rental property and the property manager is just not performing, or they're just not doing things correctly or how you think they should be doing, you have to be willing to put the smack down. You can always start out nicely, but you need people to perform to a certain level, and you need to be willing to tell them to do so. You can do it very nicely. If they don't listen, you can get more stern about it. This doesn't mean you need to come screaming out of the gate, yelling at everybody, but you've got to put your foot down, because if you don't, you will get run over. People will continue to do things how they want. And despite how good everyone's intentions are, it may not be a good enough performance to make sure that your investment keeps performing. If you're flipping a property and you have a contractor completely giving you the runaround, either try putting the smack down on the contractor first, but at some point, if that doesn't work, you need to be willing to get rid of him and get a new contractor. Because if you don't, rehab overages, time delays, everything, that is your investment. The unfortunate thing about a lot of real estate is that we're dependent on other people to do things. And if they don't perform well, we're still the ones to eat the consequences. Like, how is that fair? It's not. But it is why we need to be willing to put the smack down. Do something about an investment that has a challenge. If you have a property and things aren't going well, do something about it. There you go. 2 steps to ensuring that you maintain control over your real estate investment, which is required if you want it to keep performing profitably. Step number 1, get educated. Education is just, it's the big one. It'll change everything for you. And step number 2, be willing to do something about a problem. Be willing to put the smack down on a property or a person in order to make sure it's functioning. Now, I promised you in the beginning a special little treat. What I'm going to give you doesn't exactly fall into these 2 categories, but it's kind of in the education thing, but it is going to be a huge ticket to get you in the door of a successful investment. To some of you, it may seem kind of obvious, but I can promise you, as many people as I talk to on a daily basis, it's actually not that obvious to everybody. And in fact, it's not obvious to most people. Here you go. I'm going to link to a video below. It's called Know Where Your Profit's Coming From. Anytime you get started as an investor and you start pursuing a property, make sure that you are abundantly clear on exactly how you plan to profit from a particular property. This is kind of in the category, it's a little bit different, but when you know that, that is an act of being in control of your investment. Hey-o, great first step. Because if you don't exactly know how a property is going to profit, you're no longer in control. You don't know how to make sure that it's performing in exactly those ways. So check out that video. Secret sauce is know how a property plans to profit. I'm going to give you one last video. It is a video about control. And control is an interesting word because in some ways with real estate investing, I think that you absolutely need to be in control of everything for obvious reasons. But there's another side of it where I tell people that they need to completely let go of control. Well, how does that work? Be completely in control and completely let go. Confusing, I know. But that's what I hit on in that video. And it's important for you to understand the times when you need to be in control and the times when you need to let go of control. So check out those videos down below. Leave in the comments any experiences you have with control over your investments. Are there times where you did what you needed to do, you controlled the investment and it began performing well again? Or are there times where you should have been in better control and you got some consequences from it, some unexpected expenses or who knows what? Don't be shy. We've all been there. So share it in the comments so everybody can learn from each other. So cheers. I didn't really want to say that. Cheers to control. I don't want to say cheers to control. It sounds like we should all be control freaks. But seriously, control is a big part of this.